top 14 qualifying positions. 8 of those drivers have never won an IRL race, so who wins today will be anybody's guess. Now, joining us, IRL driver Mike Groff, not racing today, so he's up with us. A 1-mile oval, very, very tricky.
Oh, they definitely are, and this Colorado Springs track is certainly no exception to that rule. This place is all about momentum. The reason why, it's like a big circle. Short straightaways, very big corners, got to keep the momentum going, got to be aggressive. On the other side of the coin, when you get in traffic, you got to time things right. Sometimes you got to get out of it. You got to save those tires. Sometimes they go fast, you got to be slow. Good
to have you on board, Mike. Well, the field has begun to roll out, so let's send you to our Wide World of Sports studio in New York and our host, Robin Roberts. Here's the way they line up. Billy Boat is on the pole, the 4th career pole for the Texas winner. Alongside is Jeff Ward, the runner-up at Walt Disney World Speedway and Charlotte in his 3rd front row start. Tony Stewart is inside row 2. He's the defending champion, won his first race in the IRL here a year ago. Mark Dismore is alongside his 3rd consecutive start in the 2nd row. In row 3, Kenny Breck off a victory at Charlotte 3 weeks ago, and Robbie Buell looking for his first win since New Hampshire last August. In row 4, Davey Hamilton and Scott Sharp. In the 5th row, Marco Greco and Roberto Guerrero, his first ride with the Price Cop team. In row 6, Scott Goodyear and Raul Boisel. In row 7, John Paul Jr. and Indy 500 Rookie of the Year, Steve Knapp. In row 8, Buzz Calkins and Indy 500 winner Eddie Cheever. In the 9th row, the 96 Indy 500 winner Buddy Lazier and Stefan Gregoire. In row 10, Sam Schmidt and Andy Mishner. In row 11, Donnie Beechler and 2-time Indy 500 winner Ari Luyendyk. In row 12, Robbie Unser and Brian Tyler. And in row 13, Dr. Jack Miller. So the points right now, at the top of it is Scott Sharp, but Stewart and Hamilton are very, very close in this points battle. Stories that we're looking at here today, the 1-mile woes. You really got to set up the car to go fast, but also have to worry about tire wear. Who's got fuel? Well, if you can stretch it, you might be able to do this race in 2 pit stops. And in Rising Stars, that's back to anybody could win this race here today in Colorado. So the field is now aligned. Johnny Rutherford at the wheel of the Olds Alero pace car, a brand new Oldsmobile. And Billy Boat, of course, in that green Conseco car, brings the field down with Jeff Ward alongside. Back in the 2nd row on the inside, there's Tony Stewart as they roll toward the green. And here we go. They thunder through that first turn with Jeff Ward making a good move early, and Billy Boat might be having a problem because Tony Stewart came around him. Mark Dismore sitting back there in 3rd place, and now it seems that the Conseco car is really getting ready to power up, but he's dropped back 5 places just on the start, and is now being challenged by Davey Hamilton. Hamilton comes inside him with Scott Sharp just behind.
Yeah, Billy's obviously got a problem. He's definitely backing up, but he's trying to gather things up right now, and I think now he's keeping a little bit steadier, and I think he'll be charging a minute here.
On board, Tony Stewart, as he is in pursuit now of Jeff Ward. Remember, Jeff sat on the pole at Phoenix and led the early going there. He is certainly due for a win. There's Ward. He's been out. Remember, he's a multiple titleist in the Supercross series, and this last week he decided to take on the current champion Jeremy McGrath and actually kept with him for several laps. That's really something. Back through the field now as they string out. Look for your favorite driver. Stewart remains in 2nd place, then Dismore, Buell, Hamilton. Boat is in 6th, followed by Sharp, Kenny Breck, Roberto Guerrero, and Marco Greco on board with Scott Goodyear now with the Pennzoil team. Goodyear currently runs in 12th place. Shot like this, of course, you keep your eyes on the hands. It really looks like he's very, very steady on the wheel right now, back at the front of the field. Tony Stewart's really not able to challenge Jeff Ward. He's inched up on him a bit. There's Tony Stewart in 2nd place.
Yeah, Ward's really got a good pace going on right there, and he's certainly not pulling away from Stewart, but Stewart's certainly not gaining.
Jeff Ward has led for the last 5 races, doing it again. Jeff Ward now steadily, though, inching forward is Tony Stewart. The John Pikes is on board with us today, as is Jack Jan. What's going on with Wardy?
Well, for Jeff Ward, he is very excited about the handling of the car, but even more so about the performance of the engine. It turns out that he has gone to a Comtech engine, and he loves it. He says it's considerably more powerful than the engine that he did have, and he said the car has been great all weekend, so he obviously hopes to use this engine for some time.
Back at the front of the field, nice smooth start, clean to the 8th lap of this 200-lap run. The focus is at the front as we see the top 5 come through, and really on this man, Tony Stewart, because he's slowly reeling in the leader of the race, Jeff Ward. Stewart, though, has that record of leading so many laps, and yet not producing the kind of victories you would expect from that many laps in the lead. Jack, what about Billy Boat?
Well, Paul, so far there is no concern on A.J. Foyt's Conseco team. In fact, I checked both with A.J. and Craig Baranowski, the crew chief, and he said, we think the only problem is you got to remember, he's been off for a couple of races. He's got to shake the rust off. He said it doesn't surprise us, though, that Billy let the fast guys go to the front. He said, we want to lead the last lap, not the first lap. And by the way, the inside scoop is they may try to do it, Paul, in just 2 pit stops.
Billy Boat just turned his last lap at 166, just a bit behind the speed of Jeff Ward, the leader of the race. And Boat currently runs in 11th place, while Tony Stewart continues to try to work on the leader of the race, Jeff Ward. We'll return with more of the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys after this message and a word from our ABC station.
Pep Boys. This ABC Sports presentation brought to you by Pep Boys, the official sponsor of the Indy Racing League. Goodyear, innovators of run-flat technology. Frost Brewed Coors Light, it reminds you the 3 most important words are hey, beer, man. And Pennzoil, specially formulated for today's stop-and-go driving. Stop, go, Pennzoil.
All right, we are back. Let's get you up to speed on what's happened while we've been away. Tony Stewart, using traffic to his advantage on the 12th lap, was able to move past Jeff Ward and picked up the lead of the race, and since then has moved 0.6 of a second ahead of Ward, now running in second ahead of Robbie Buell. And as you can see, Tony Stewart is now having to deal with traffic.
There's no question. I think that's how he got the edge on Jeff Ward. It was through traffic. I think Jeff caught the guy at the wrong time, like I was saying at the top of the show. Nothing you can do about that, really, and Tony Stewart just shot right past him.
This is the 12th IRL event on a 1-mile oval, and Tony Stewart has led in 11 of them, including all 5 this year. Here's Hamilton, and we look back in the field, Robbie Buell, that blue car, the Johns Manville car, running in 3rd, and he is really seriously being attacked by Hamilton now. Look at that fight as well, and then Billy Boat. The leaders, for the moment, are stringing their way through traffic without any particular problems, but now the remainder of the leadership has to come through this field. Back at the front of the field, Tony Stewart, still the leader. Ward has moved up a bit. He's now 0.5 of a second back. There's Ward. Closing in. Battle to the front.
There's no question this is definitely a traffic race. I mean, you know, one shot deserved another there. I think Ward got slowed down in the traffic, and now Stewart's getting that a bit right now. He's having a hard time getting past the car in front of him.
Stephen Gregoire was just ahead of the leader. Gregoire finished second in this race last year. Look how fast Ward comes in there as he comes down to the inside. I think he got him just after the line, so he may not be credited with this lap, but Jeff Ward, with a bold move in traffic, comes back to the lead of the run.
That was an awesome pass.
Gregoire still in front of him. There is Buell. Whoa, car with an engine problem, and it looks like Buzz Calkins. Buzz, this is really in many ways his hometown track. He comes from Denver, about an hour and a half drive from here. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, that's definitely a shame, definitely a motor. I mean, Buzz certainly had a role on this weekend. He got behind the 8 ball early on, and it's a shame to see him go like that.
Car 77 should be your last car.
You hear the voice of Mel Harder in IRL race control as Buzz Calkins pulls off to the edge.
Car 12 stop. Car 35, start finish line. Chase car. Chase car, car 35 to turn 1. I can't see you. Okay, we've got him. Control. Copy, thanks.
And that gives us our first yellow after now 28 laps of the 200 laps, 200 miles of competition here. So Buzz Calkins is safe, but of course he is in trouble in terms of not being able to finish this race. That looked to be something fairly serious. We'll be back with more of the Colorado 200, presented by Pep Boys, right after this.
Well, Paul, one of the things that always happens on 1 mile racetracks is fuel management. Now, a lot of teams want to manage what's in the tank as it comes down this tube into the race car. Now, there's different ways that you can do that, but in the case of Tony Stewart, watch for this throughout the course of the race. Tony Stewart will set a certain pace in the race car. If other cars go faster, he's not going to be concerned about it. He's a racy kind of guy, but they try to keep the bridle on him because they have geared this car so that they can get 2 miles to the gallon today in hopes that they'll be able to make this 200-mile race in just 2 pit stops. Paul?
Seems interesting strategy, but one that could in fact be dangerous. We'll see how it plays out for Tony Stewart and the Menard team. Don't forget Monday Night Live at 8 o'clock Eastern on ABC Sports. It's NFL preseason action when Dallas tackles New England live from Mexico City, the last game of the 98 American Bowl Series. Now, what about the situation with Buzz Calkins, John?
Well, it turns out, Mike, that you were right. It was a blown engine for Buzz Calkins, but here's the big concern. We talked briefly about our leader, Jeff Ward. He has a new engine builder in Comtech. Well, that's the exact same engine builder that we have here with Buzz Calkins. So is that a concern? The main reason that they switched to Comtech is because it's been extremely reliable. But here in the opening laps, a problem already for Buzz. Paul?
So Buzz Calkins walks a very long walk back. We'll return with more of the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys after this message and a word from our ABC station. The Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys. Well, we should be coming back to green flag racing fairly shortly. The leader of the race is Jeff Ward. You see him there in the orange and white car on the left side of the screen. That is Tony Stewart, the defending champion and the defending champion of this race here. And then Robbie Buell sits in third. Jan Pikes?
Well, we'll make this quick before we go back to green. But Raul, I understand it was an engine to let go. Any reason why 2 engines will let go so early?
I have no idea. We was playing very conservative. You have bad experience the last 2 races. Really used low revs to finish the race, but even doing that, something went wrong. So I don't know.
Okay, we're back to green, and unfortunately, Raul is not going to be part of it.
So the McCormick car out of the race early, as now Jeff Ward has to hold off at charging Tony Stewart. Remember earlier, Stewart got past him, picked up the lead, and then Ward with a great pass in the first turn came right back around using traffic very much to his advantage. 1, 2, and 3. Ward, Stewart, Buell right now, followed by Billy Boat, who is steadily moving himself back up in position. But of course, he will have some slower traffic, lap traffic to deal with.
One thing that's got to be tough for a guy like Jeff Ward leading the race on the restart, going into that corner where the oil was let down and being the first guy. I mean, obviously the guys behind him could gauge what's going on, but he's the first one at it, and he made it through great, no problems at all. But you just never know as a driver what to think about that. But he's got a good lead.
From time to time, you'll get a glimpse of a black car in there. That's Donnie Beatsford's number 98. He is 1 lap down, but he's staying pretty competitive with the leaders right behind him. The dark green car is the number 11 of Billy Boat. So he's separated from this 3-way battle for first right now.
I'll tell you, Boat is definitely staying in the hunt. I mean, we saw him drop back at the beginning. I think he was being a little bit conservative. You got to remember, the guy's been out for 2 races and on crutches, so he didn't know exactly what to expect going into this thing. It's been a while, but I think he's in the hunt.
And Mike, one of the things that many fans may or may not know is how Billy Boat was injured. We've alluded to the fact that he broke his leg, his femur, and his pelvis at New Hampshire International Speedway, but that was the result of the first time I've ever heard of this, a spearing. The nose cone off of Roberto Guerrero's car was literally impacted into the tub of the Conseco car driven by Boat. In fact, it was so complex the way it came in and hit him, they were unable to remove the nose cone, and they had to trash the tub.
That's exactly right. And actually talking to the Foyt guys,
Goodyear is slowing right there.
no doubt. They had actually mentioned that they got back to the shop in Houston, and they had Boycel's nose in their car when they got back to the shop, so that was not a good thing.
Yeah, not good news for the Pennzoil car in Panther Racing, as Goodyear was in and definitely off on power as he came in. Now the rest of the crew is at the back of the car, so obviously this is going to be lengthy. And once again, the leaders begin to encounter traffic. Remember, that's where Tony Stewart was able to make his move earlier. Jack?
Well, this is a big disappointment for Jim Harbaugh's Panther Racing team. Scott Goodyear is suffering fuel pressure problems. Now, as you watch the crew, what they'll have to do is get down to where the fuel feeds into this normally aspirated engine. That's a little bit of a handful because you have to take the air cleaner off. Then they'll have to do really a hunt and peck, try and find out what the problem is. But on a 1 mile racetrack, the laps tick off while Goodyear sits on pit road.
Well, I think, Mike Groff, there's, as we watch moving back to the battle for 6th, there's another issue there. You're working on a very hot engine, hot headers, and you're going to be messing with fuel lines.
There's no question, and that makes it tough around here. You know, these guys are definitely keeping a pretty good pace, so I got to tell you, and there's some good battles out there today.
Battle here for 4th place, Boat, Dismore, Breck. They line up behind the lap car of Beechler. There, the 11 car. That, of course, is Billy Boat. Ward remains 0.8 of a second ahead of the leader, Stewart. Mark Dismore, that black, red, and white car just behind him.
And Paul, some of the teams are starting to think about tires, tire wear, and what tires to put on next. In the case of our leader, Jeff Ward, they've been very concerned about the wear of the tires, as have most of the competitors. They have the harder Goodyear tire on the right rear, and they've just made a decision to change for scrub tires instead of brand new stickers. Mitch Davis making the call, saying that's what they'll have on their next stop.
Of course, the fuel strategy we already indicated. They ought to be able to go to the 60th lap now. With the yellow, they ought to be able to go a little bit further. But some cars, and most notably Tony Stewart, seriously thinking about trying to make this a 2-pit stop race. So 3 would probably be a little safer deal.
I'll tell you, anytime you can make it a 2-stop race, you certainly want to do that for obvious reasons, but I think that's going to be a tough stretch for sure.
Well, here's some good news. Scott Goodyear back into the fight. In fact, watching this at home is Jim Harbaugh, quarterback for the Ravens, who had a great day yesterday, blanked out the Jets, passed for 126 yards and 1 touchdown. Jim's on the phone with us. Jim, I bet your heart stopped on that one. Technical stuff, or else he dropped the phone saying my guy's back in the fight. I'm going to watch the television. We'll try and reestablish contact with Jim Harbaugh. But the good news is that Scott Goodyear is back and at speed, but unfortunately the bad news is he is 7 laps behind the lead of the race, currently running in 22nd with Buzz Calkins out. Look at the front of the field. Battle tightens up for the lead. Tony Stewart working that lower line.
Well, you talk about mixing it up. These guys, I'll tell you, they're mixing up through traffic like you can't believe. Here goes Stewart.
Stewart looks to the inside. He works the lower line better, takes the lead back. Ward back to second. Buell remains in third. Still a fight for the lead. Back to Tony Stewart. Remember, from the side, Jeff Ward's car is predominantly orange and white, but when you look at it head on, the white kind of goes away, and you're looking at an orange car. That's the battle for the front here. 51 laps complete. The Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys. We continue to watch the battle at the front of the field. We're going to try it again. Jim Harbaugh, are you there with us, buddy?
Yeah, hi, Paul.
Ah, good to hear you. So good game yesterday, but we understand that the fuel pressure problem has not yet been solved on this car. You're one of the owners of this machine.
Trouble with the car early like this. We've only had 2 DNFs the whole year, but Scott's back out there. We got a great crew, and it's running now.
Of course, your affection for the sport of IndyCar racing developed while you were in Indianapolis. You got involved with this team. Have you enjoyed it?
I have loved it. I am such a huge race fan, and getting a chance to meet John Barnes and a sponsor like Pennzoil has just been incredible. My family's just so into racing, and it's a great league. The Pep Boys IRL is super, and I can't tell you what a thrill it was to be at the Indy 500. And wish I could be out there today, but I'm enjoying the coverage on TV.
Well, Jim, it's great for you to join us. Hopefully, Scott Goodyear will be able to find a way to move forward, but 7 laps behind's a hard line to overcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, now we move back a little bit in the field. You get a glimpse there of Billy Boat. This is a battle for 4th place. Boat, Dismore, Kenny Breck. As the leader now works through traffic, and Scott Sharp is the car that he just went under. He's fallen well back from 9th to 14th in just 2 laps, so Scott Sharp could be in trouble. Leaders work their way through traffic. It's still Stewart in front, but look at Ward. He sticks right with him. Ari Lyondike, Qualcomm car just ahead. Ward looks to the inside.
I got to tell you, Ward is not going to let Stewart get away. There's no way about that. I mean, he's staying glued to his rear wing, and he's not going to take any of that today.
Yeah, Ward is especially tenacious today. Now he tries a little bit of a lower line. It looks like Stewart has him a bit in the corner, and they're both chasing Ari Lyondike.
And Paul, Scott Sharp has brought his car on pit road, and the answer to the question as to why he was slowing down is because the car went very, very loose, and they're taking front wing out of the car. They took 2 turns, and now he's underway.
Lyondike, by the way, is not having his best of days, running back at 17th now.
Like I said, Paul, earlier in the show, this track is definitely a handling track. 90% of this track is turns, and that car's got to work. And obviously, Ari is having a hard battle with the car right now, but a few changes, he might be back in the mix.
Whatever the problem with Scott Sharp was, he decided to bring it into the pits. He was in for 11 seconds, right back out. Here's Ward closing again on Stewart, again coming to the inside. Stewart may be trapped behind Ari Lyondike's car, and Ward takes the lead back over. And don't forget, Buell is sitting right in there. That blue car just behind, that's Buell. And now he goes to work on his teammate. So the Menard teammates battle, and Buell goes into 2nd place. Fuel conservation on Stewart's part now, what do you think?
It's pretty hard to say. That could be the issue right now, but with the in-car camera, I got to tell you, you look at his hands, the car balance looks pretty good. It doesn't look like anything's wrong there, so maybe that's just what he's doing. He's watching his fuel.
So Ward now not under pressure, but he will be shortly as Buell comes around Ari Lyondike and takes up the pursuit of the leader from 2nd place.
And Paul, one of the situations for Tony Stewart is a combination of factors. Yes, they're trying to conserve fuel. Yes, they're counting down to their pit stop. It should happen in about 7 more laps. And because of that, yes, they got caught in very heavy traffic. And the team leader, Larry Curry, was not at all happy how that lap traffic worked with the leaders.
So Mike Ross, they're really walking a tightrope there in terms of that car. They want to stay in contact with the lead, but if you're running fuel conservation, you don't really have the power to kick it up and go.
I think a tightrope walk is definitely the way to sum it up, Paul. You know, you want to stay in the mix, and I think Tony is. He's not letting anybody get away. But, you know, he does want to conserve. He wants to be smart with the tires. You can burn your right rear off in a hurry here, and I think that he's really paying attention to that. That could pay.
And, Mike, when you know that you're within your fuel window in terms of pushing the button to 11/10, does a driver continue to do that, knowing that maybe in 4 or 5 laps he's going to have to come down on pit road, or do you keep things just in sight?
I think right now that's just what Tony's doing, is keeping things in sight. I don't think he's going 10/10 or 11/10. I mean, he's certainly mixing it up, working good through traffic, staying in touch with the leaders. I think he's doing a really smart thing right now. You got to baby those tires, particularly the right rear. These corners are really drawn out.
Tony Stewart, for a moment there, almost came back on his teammate, Robbie Buell. But what about the leader? If we're getting close to the pit for Tony Stewart, Jan Beekes?
Well, it turns out that the situation for Tony Stewart is bad news. If he finds out what Jeff Ward is going to do, they think they can go a whole another 10 laps before they have to come on pit road. So that would help us believe that, in fact, Tony Stewart may not be saving fuel, and that, in fact, right now, it is Jeff Ward who's getting the best fuel economy.
Well, we'll find out when they all head for the pits. 66 laps are now into the record book. Billy Boat, the pole sitter, into the pits. some pretty big changes on the front wing.
Yeah, and they've been having a little bit of a handling problem, Paul. We were trying to talk to you before to tell you that fact. But Billy Boat is one of those drivers that is not having the kind of fuel consumption that he would like to have to make this in 2 stops. He's wearing the right front tires severely. Now, he's one of the Goodyear drivers, and that is one of the concerns. But like normally on a mile track, you'd be wearing the right rear, laying that down, trying to get as much grip as possible. The right front's a little bit surprising.
That is a little bit unusual, Jack, but I think right now, I think what happened is, and what you saw at the beginning, he went into the start of the race with a little bit of understeer, more than he probably wanted, and I think they just screwed some more wing in the front. That grips the front of the car, gives it better balance, so I would be surprised if he continues to wear that right front out.
Yes.
Boat was in the pits for 17.8 seconds. If you're a fan of Steve Knapp, he was also in the pits 12.5 seconds. With 66 laps complete, Stewart now on the road.
Tony, what kind of changes you want? Nothing, just fresh tires. On the mark. On the mark.
Believe it or not, a driver is busy during this time. He has to reset the fuel, has to check the gauges, and make last-minute decisions. Nominal stop so far.
Well, Larry Curry, the team manager, asked on the way in what he would want. He said nothing. That surely indicates that the car is in pretty good shape. Now the teammate comes in, Robbie Buell, from second place. Don't see anybody reaching for either the front or rear wing. They always stand by with the external engine start, just in case that engine dies, but it's another good stop there. So Robbie Buell in and out. We wait for Jeff Ward, who apparently getting great mileage because once again he continues on. Here with 76 laps complete, when Ari Leyendyk had a problem, looked like an engine let go, but here's the leader of the race now, Jeff Ward, and he takes advantage, catches the advantage of the yellow, and turns in for his first stop of the day.
And Paul, the whole team was jumping up and down. They were so excited that they were able to make this stop under yellow. That obviously puts them at a huge advantage for anyone who was able to pit under green. A nice quick stop for Jeff Ward. And again, the team is just ecstatic that they got the timing, the fuel mileage to catch a yellow for their first pit stop.
Always good to be lucky. Now, Ari Leyendyk and his problem, Jackaroo.
Well, Ari Leyendyk, you had an engine expire. Was there any warning for you on board?
No, the engine was running smooth. It wasn't running very fast, but it was running smooth, and it started to tighten up, and before I got a chance even to get out of the throttle, it blew up. So it kind of ended a miserable weekend, which is too bad because we had a lot of sprint PCS folks out here, so I wanted to give them a good show.
Okay, let's go back upstairs. Sorry to see you out, Ari.
So again, if we return to what we said at the start of the show, there's one of the big names, two-time Indy 500 winner Ari Leyendyk out. Don't forget, Saturday at 4 Eastern on ABC Sports, Major League Soccer. LA takes the field against New England. That's next Saturday, 4 Eastern on ABC. So Jeff Ward has been powerful in the early laps of this race. 78 are complete. We've had 2 yellows, both of them situations that didn't involve contact with the wall, thankfully. And Jeff Ward started out in the lead, picked the lead up on the start, then battled with Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart took the lead in traffic, then once again, Jeff Ward took it back. So it has been a battle between those two. And we're ready to go green once again. There's Jeff Ward. Down in the fight now, coming out after his stop. Ward working traffic. In fact, plenty of traffic. Buell just ahead of him. Robbie Buell's had a nice day thus far. Teammate to Tony Stewart in that blue car. Well, look at this. Ward now really has traffic in front of him. They come 3, almost 4 wide, and Jeff Ward comes around Sam Schmidt.
I gotta tell you, Ward's getting through traffic like nobody else. He's just flying right now.
Well, is incredible shape. Lazier scored in second, followed by Greco, John Paul Jr., and Roberto Guerrero.
Say, Wardy's got to be smiling right now because of the fact that when he did come into the pits, they didn't make a change other than putting fuel and tires in the car. And I think that's a really good sign. Plus, that's not to mention the huge break that he got pitting under yellow. The Menard guys didn't get that luxury, so they got their work cut out for them.
And Mike, the reason that Jeff Ward is able to slide through traffic as well as he is that Mitch Davis decided to run his car with full maximum downforce. They felt as though on a 1 mile oval, they'd give away some straightaway speed for more downforce, which would help them in the corners. So at the moment, that's really working in traffic.
There's no question that would make a difference at a place like this, because I tell you, the air is so thin up here in the mountains in Colorado, and there's really no air for the wings to grab onto. So the more downforce you put in, obviously, it's going to help. It's going to drag the car down a little bit, but it's going to grip good through the corners, and that's just what Jeff's is doing.
The elevation here at 5,000 feet, mile high. When you do that, though, does not drag go up along with it?
It's definitely a trade-off, Paul, but you definitely are offered less downforce to begin with here. And everybody's in the same boat, but obviously they went the downforce route, and it's paying off. It was the way to go, no question.
Looking back from Scott Sharpen, you just saw the leader, Jeff Ward, come around Billy Boat to put him a lap down. Well, I'll tell you what, he seems to be able to handle anything on this track that he wants to.
He really does.
Back in the field now, the battle for fourth place. Guerrero, John Paul Jr., Davey Hamilton. John Paul Jr. right of the screen. Guerrero, that bright blue car. We'll put the clock on them as they hit the line next time by and see who the fastest in the field really is. Almost everybody now, with the exception of Tony Stewart, working in traffic. Marco Greco, to this point, the quickest on the lap. Now Hamilton showing faster as he comes across the line. Stewart, no surprise there, he's running all alone. So Tony Stewart, nice clear track ahead of him. Again at the line.
So you can see why Tony's running so well right now. You look at his hands right here. I mean, he's just got that little bit of input into the corner, and that says a lot right there. The grip on the front is not a whole bunch. The rear's gripping good, and that's what you want right now at this stage.
Tony Stewart smoothly moving along. And comes back onto the lead lap. 17 seconds behind the leader of the race.
Tony's got the kind of balance right now through the corners that every driver would smile about. I mean, he's got that little bit of input, a little bit of scrub in the front, and if he can keep it that way through this stint, he's going to be smiling.
Tony Stewart running seventh. This is the front of the field. Jeff Ward, been a dominant power thus far today. Smooth run, good run for this car. Second is Buddy Lazier, then Marco Greco, who was fastest in the final practice session yesterday. Marco Greco with a good run as well. Ward, Lazier, Greco at the Colorado 200, presented by Pep Boy. We'll be back with more.
Well, Paul, remember we told you they were having a fuel pickup problem? Well, the reason that Goodyear was on pit road for so long is they literally took off the aircraft quality nozzle, the fitting, into the fuel cell. Kevin Boss, the crew chief, got up alongside the car and reached inside the fuel cell, got all the way up to his shoulder, felt around in the foam, found the fuel pickup, made sure that it was unblocked, then pulled it out, and then they sent him back out on the racetrack. Now, there's only one problem on pit road now. As he splashed it back out, a lot of methanol was put down on the ground, and now the crew's going to have to wet it down with water. It'll make for a very slick pit box. Back to you.
So Scott Goodyear's problems continue. The leader, Jeff Ward. Buddy Lazier sits in second place. This is the fight for third. Hamilton, Greco, Guerrero. Hamilton in the orange and silver car. Guerrero, you may not recognize that car. It's off the edge of the screen at the moment, but it's a brand new machine in the Price Cobb team, and bright blue, very pretty car. Scott Goodyear spent over 2 minutes in the pits last time in. Here's Eddie Cheever coming in as well. Tony Stewart now sits in 6th place. He's the one that's been in contest with the leader, but the pit stop difference really set him well back in the field. You're on board the Pennzoil car with Scott Goodyear. Clear run, but Goodyear is well behind the race now, 27 laps behind.
And the bad thing for Scott is you look at his in-car camera back in that last shot, and I mean, it looks like his balance pretty good. I mean, and he's got to be liking that. The only problem is that he got down with that fuel problem, and that really disappoints the driver, I got to tell you.
Jeff Ward started on the outside of the front row, has led 78 of the 103 laps. We're at 105 now, so it is an official race, though weather does not appear to be an issue except for the fact that it is very hot here. And you also got a view there from time to time of Kenny Breck, who is just about to go a lap down. He's in 7th place. There's the leader of the race. He comes through. We're looking for Buddy Lazier. And there's Buddy as he turns into the corner. Jan Pikes?
Well, Paul, the reason that Buddy Lazier is in 2nd spot at the moment is he also was able to benefit by that yellow flag pit stop like we saw for Jeff Ward. We checked with the crew, and they said in the first stint the car was pushing a little bit. We've heard of a lot of cars being loose. They made a slight wing adjustment for Buddy. Now he says the car is perfect.
Well, looking at the Delta Foster car, oh, Roberto Guerrero, he slows on the course. Roberto Guerrero, brand new team for him. He's had a good week, had a nice qualifying run, and a good run in the race to this point. Harkening back to what Jan suggested, well, Lazier, Hamilton, and Greco, they all picked up an opportunity by pitting under the yellow. But Tony Stewart is now steadily working his way back through the field and now runs up in 4th place, having just gotten around Marco Greco as Roberto Guerrero had his problem. Buddy Lazier there on the right of the screen.
But you know, guys, you were talking about Stewart, the fact that he's got to come from the back the way he is now. I've questioned Larry Curry as to whether they can still make this race on 2 pit stops. And you know, Curry's always brimming full of confidence. He didn't have as much the last time I asked him that question.
That's interesting. On board Tony Stewart. There's the 3rd place car. That's Davey Hamilton. One of those rising stars that we were talking about, looking for his first win. They ride in 1st place, Jeff Ward, and of course the 5th place car of Marco Greco. The top 5, 3 of them have not won and are looking for an opportunity. The problem with Guerrero, Jan Pikes?
Well, it turns out, Paul, that it is a lack of fuel pressure. Of course, they're running the Nissan Infinity power plant. That may or may not have anything to do, in this particular case, with fuel pressure, but that is the problem Roberto has right now.
2 power plants in the series, the Olds Aurora, and of course the Nissan Infinity. And Nissan now making strides to come back as best they can. They don't have nearly the number of engines in the field, so they don't have the kind of research that they would like. Still, they're working very, very well. The battle for second, Buddy Lazier, that purple car, trimmed out in yellow. Davey Hamilton, and that's Davey Hamilton there. The other car, almost identical colors of the Reebok car, is Michener, and you can tell the difference. Here's how you do it. If you look at the rollover bar on Andy Michener's car, they put a nice yellow spot, a nice day-glow spot up on the top of that car to try to help everybody identify the car. There is, in fact, that car. So, it's continuing to be the leader, Jeff Ward, now followed by Lazier and Hamilton. We'll return with more of the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys after this message and a word from our ABC station.
And don't know what happened. It was pretty hard to tell. Maybe he got some rubber on the front tire in for.
He led 97 laps. He's out of the run, but Jeff Ward is okay. Jan?
And Mitch Davis talks to him on the radio. Did he tell you what happened down there in turn 4?
Down in turn 4, he got on the outside, I don't know who it was, some lap car, and he got up in the marbles, and I guess he brushed the wall, and he must have broke something, and he went down, got into turn 1, and I guess it broke the rest of the way, and he hit the wall.
Tough day. You guys were really strong.
Yeah, this G-Force car is just awesome. I mean, the Goodyear tires today, the first stop, we ran almost 80 laps on a set of tires. I mean, he was hooked up, just out there cruising around behind Kenny Breck, waiting for the next stop and the end of the race. And you know, the marbles get more marbles as the race goes on. He just got up in that oil drive from that engine blow up, and I think he bumped the wall.
Thanks.
So Jeff Ward makes the compulsory trip to the hospital, but he climbed out of the car quickly and is okay. Mike, here it is again, a little slower.
There's no question. You can see with this car down here, it definitely pushed him up high. He got up out of the line, and it definitely got him up in the marbles, which is exactly where he didn't want to be, and I think that definitely hurt him going into 2.
So Jeff Ward, who was the dominant power in the race, is out, and of course that means the yellow is out as well, and Buddy Lazier is in front at the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys. We've had 3 cautions, 1 wall banger, and it was Jeff Ward, the leader of the race. So he is out as his car heads back into the garage area. Tonight, the Emmy-nominated The Practice is on at its new time every Sunday at 10/9 Central. ABC saves the best part of the weekends for the end of the weekend, The Practice. All right, now, as they circulate under the yellow flag, there's a lot of strategy work going on in the pits. Here's a pit insight with Jan.
Well, Paul, we talk about our leader, of course, Buddy Lazier. You say, how can a guy go from 17th starting position now leading this race? Well, I talked to the team owner, Ron Himmelgarn, after qualifying. I said, well, are you guys in trouble? He said, no, we're not in trouble. We never, ever, ever work on a qualifying setup. We always work on a race setup. So they know in advance they're not going to qualify well, but then look what happens. You get good fuel economy, you're patient, you catch a yellow flag, and next thing you know, your Buddy Lazier is leading this race. Pretty good strategy, and obviously it's paying off so far. Paul?
Delta Faucet car sparkling in the sunlight here. He is from, of course, Colorado, up in the Vail area. And there is the rest of the lineup behind him. Some separation back to Tony Stewart, 2 cars in front of him. You know, one of the nice things that the Indy Racing League does at every race is after the qualifying and the final practice session on Saturday, they throw the garage area open to the race fans. This was the scene here last night, and all the drivers hang around. Mark Dismore giving away a few autographs, answering questions, as well as all of the other drivers. There's Billy Boat, Robbie Unser, and Eddie Cheever. And the leader of the race is in, and he stalled the engine. The leader of the race under yellow, and this is what you don't want to do, Jan.
And that's right, Paul. The team was able to get the stop done in 11.38 seconds, and then he stalled it. Let's get to Jack.
And Jan, you can see that Tony Stewart is completing his run, and he got out before Buddy Lazier. But the one thing that we want to track is whether or not that will be the final stop for Tony Stewart.
Well, I would assume that that's going to make it real close. 126 laps complete. That's going to be out the edge, don't you think, Mike?
Well, let's ask him right real quick. Larry Curry, are you coming back in ever again before the checkered flag?
I'm not planning to. We got to go for it here. You know, you can't come in with 2 laps to go.
Jan?
Well, the situation is the same for Buddy Lazier. They say they will not be back here on pit road, so obviously this works very well for their strategy. They caught the yellow the first time, now they've caught it again, and they say they definitely can go all the way. Paul?
I think we're looking at 2 major gamblers there, because my way of thinking, unless they get some yellows, of which we've only had 3 in this race, they are going to be stretching it right to the last fume when they hit the checkered flag.
There's no question about that, Paul, and I got to tell you, Larry Curry's voice, I think that certainly indicated some concern. He didn't sound real confident, but you never know. I'll tell you, luck could be on their side, and they could go all the way.
We've anticipated that there might be a start, but then at the last moment, the race control frequency told Johnny Rutherford in the old Solero pace car that they were going to go at least 1 other lap while they get the course in shape. Up in race control, there is Mel Harder. That's Brian Barnhart just behind him, who is directing the race, but Mel doing the communication.
Hey, race control the pace car. We're going to go this time by, lights out on the backstretch. This time by, lights out on the backstretch.
Of course, that announcement heard by everyone in the pits as well. Jack?
Well, quickly, Jeff Ward, you've been out of the hospital, but let's talk a little bit about the disappointment today.
Yeah, Jack, it's a pretty big disappointment. We had a good race car, and I believe we cut a tire because I barely saved it in 4, and then going into 1, I lifted off knowing I had maybe a little rubber on my tire, and I just felt the car just lean over on the front. Nothing I could do, but you know, the whole ISM team did a great job, and we had a good shot at winning this one. It's just unfortunate.
Well, he'll get to victory lane sooner or later.
Well, another fellow who has not yet won a race has picked up the lead in the person of Davey Hamilton in the Reebok number 6.
And Paul, one of the great things about Davey Hamilton, all day, his team has been just staying on the periphery of the front. What they've been trying to do is not only conserve fuel, but also conserve tires. Right now, they radioed to Davey and said, how does it feel? He says, it's never been better. They said, let's go racing.
Kenny Breck in the number 14 Power Team car owned by A.J. Foyt is in second place. His teammate Billy Boat is in third. Jack Arute. Davey Hamilton has Scruffy. He's a good luck omen for the team. He was missing for a while. Is he back?
Well, Scruffy is back after missing, and as you alluded to, Paul, the fact that Scruffy was missing, they had some problems. So they mysteriously have found Scruffy, and Scruffy is a stuffed animal that sits atop his pit area, and it's been a good luck charm for the team. And Scruffy is back, and he is under very, very heavy protection.
And I'd say a lot of pressure today because you've been watching the battle between Kenny Breck, the number 14 car, and his teammate Billy Boat, both A.J. Foyt cars. And that battle is for second place, happening 3 seconds behind the leader, Davey Hamilton.
I'll tell you, anytime a guy like Davey gets in the lead like that and radios to his crew that the car's never been better, I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, those guys, that's exactly what they want to hear, and they don't hear things like that too often. So I think Davey's sitting pretty right now.
You want to know how the Indy champion, Eddie Cheever, is doing? Well, there he is, right behind this battle. Eddie currently runs in 8th place, but he is a lap behind the lead. Onto the backstretch. And from time to time here at Pikes Peak International, you get a view of southbound Interstate 25, which parallels the backstretch. And the northbound cars on 25, when you see those cars, you see how fast these cars are really going. Hamilton the leader. The battle we watch is that of second. Conseco car of Boat, Power Team car of Breck. Breck is in second. Hamilton's pulling away. He's now 4.5 seconds ahead of this fight for second. Kenny Breck, of course, got into the winner's column this year.
He definitely did, and I got to tell you, those two right now, teammates, Boat and Breck, are really having at it right now.
And if you keep track of Marco Greco from Sao Paulo, Brazil, he's had a very good weekend. He runs now in 5th place behind Tony Stewart. There's Scruffy. Scruffy got a lot of work to do, though. He's got to keep Davey Hamilton out in front. One of the rising stars then may take the win. Tony Stewart now up to 4th, and he should begin to appear here on this battle. Ooh, nice clear track ahead for him, and then that is Breck and Boat.
I'm going to tell you, once again, looking at the in-car camera in Stewart's car, he just really looks like he has a good balance, and I think that's going to pay.
Just ride with him. Watch his hands, because that's really the key, isn't it?
Definitely, and anytime you have just that little bit of input, like he does, you know, a little bit of turn, that means the front's just scrubbing ever so slightly. Anytime he's got his hand back this way, this being center this way, you know that's a loose car, but he's right on this side, and that's exactly where you want to be. Now, you know, the balance might start going towards the center again, but that's not so bad. He can make changes inside the car, which I'm sure he will do just like last year, and I got to tell you, his balance looks good.
And Mike, you were talking about making changes inside the car. That's exactly what Tony Stewart has been doing all day. In fact, he radioed in, he felt like a one-arm paper hanger, because between trying to change the bars, trying to change the weight jackers, trying to change the brake bias, and turn in this big oval, he said, I have twisted on everything in this cockpit. And he said, if I have to, I'll just keep twisting. And all Larry Curry said was, 10-4.
Tony Stewart just worked his way around Sam Schmidt and Brian Tyler. We take you back to that battle for second place, Kenny Breck and Billy Boat. Eddie Cheever's been sitting there right with that fight, but he is 1 lap down, and he is running currently in 8th place. Leader of the race, Davey Hamilton, number 6 Reebok car. He distinguished from Andy Michner's car by the fact that this car has a flash of bright orange on top of the rollover bar and on the engine cowling behind the driver. So it is still Davey Hamilton in front with the retirement of Jeff Ward. We'll be back with more of the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys. Here's our race summary to this point in the run. Jeff Ward on lap 60 at the leader of the race. Picks it up from Tony Stewart. They battle back and forth. And then 118 into the wall all alone. And gives Davey Hamilton the lead of the race. And he continues to be the leader now by over 2 seconds ahead of a battle between Foyt cars of Kenny Breck and Billy Boat. There is Davey Hamilton, the leader of the run, but Tony Stewart is very quietly making his presence known, currently running in 4th place. Look at that. Buddy Lazier with a great run as he came up to 6th. Beechler, 21st to 10th. Robbie Unser having another great run. Remember that wonderful run that he had at the Indianapolis 500 this year.
And Paul, one of the problems right now is with the leader. Davey Hamilton says he feels something in the steering of the car. He said it feels like the right front has got a problem. When I asked his crew about it, they all made vehement denials. But Davey keeps radioing back and forth saying that. And just recently, his crew radioed back and said, Davey, you're in the lead. There's less than 50 laps to go. And then Davey got real silent.
I may figure out how to make this work. So Davey Hamilton continues to run in the lead and pulling it out. Now 3.3 seconds ahead of the 2nd place car of Kenny Breck. Billy Boat runs in 3rd. And now with 45 laps to go in the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys. We started out with a battle between Jeff Ward and Tony Stewart. Jeff Ward jumped off of the outside of the front row and into the lead and battled back and forth through most of the race with Tony Stewart, but then suddenly got himself into trouble, got up against the wall. That took him out of the run, gave the lead over to Davey Hamilton, who currently leads it. Battling in 2nd place and now breaking off from his teammate Billy Boat is Kenny Breck. Boat sits in 3rd. Tony Stewart has been running a very tactical race. There, everyone worried about fuel, and there you see Tony sitting back in 4th. Robbie Buell, his teammate, sits back in 5th place. Now at the 157th lap where we are now, 43 to go, most of the top teams are saying we're going to run this thing to the finish. But Mike Roth is sitting here with me, and he keeps shaking his head.
You're shaking your head too, Paul, and I got to tell you, I think it's going to be tough to stretch it. If you can, obviously you're going to be the superstar of the day, but it's going to be close. I'll tell you that right now.
200-lap race. The last time that the top 3 stopped was on the 119th lap. You're with Tony Stewart now in the Menard Glidden car. The last time Stewart, Buddy Lazier, and Robbie Buell stopped was 7 laps later on the 126th lap. You figure it out.
I have. It's going to be tough.
You do that in the car. You sit there and thinking, oh, I wonder if they're right.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, it does enter the back of your mind for sure, but you really need to rely upon your pit crew to sort that stuff out, and I think they certainly have and are. And, you know, as a driver, you just got to get out there and do your thing. There's plenty of other stuff going on, but it's in the back of your mind, believe me, and I'm sure that it's in everybody's mind right now.
Well, when we started this conversation, Tony Stewart was almost a full straightaway behind Billy Boat. He's now nibbling away at him. That's Billy Boat that you see just up ahead.
I'll tell you, on these mile ovals, nibbling away is the way to do it. I mean, that's the way you got to do it, and he certainly is. He's gaining ground, no question about it.
Get a quick glimpse from time to time, and there you do, back from Tony Stewart's car. That's Robbie Buell, his teammate, who hasn't been spectacular today, but has been steadily right where he needs to be.
Buell is running strong, and I got to tell you, that shot right there says it all. I mean, he's got a good run on him, and he's going to have a go at it.
More than a good run. It looks like he may get his teammate, the John Mansell car. That's Robbie Buell. He moves past and picks up the position on Tony Stewart. Now, wait a minute. Are they thinking about sending him out as a rabbit?
That's a good question.
Look at the battle for the lead. They're closing on him now. Everybody's closing up on Hamilton. And here comes the fight for the lead.
I got to tell you, Buell's on fire right now. He's really rolling.
For a second there, Kenny Breck was right on top of him. That's Eddie Cheever in the blue, actually a teal, black and white car that's in the middle of the mix, and Cheever's a lap behind the lead in 8th place. But here's the guy to keep an eye on. Kenny Breck has been right there with the leaders, and Billy Boat, his teammates, closing with him. Again, we look at the fight for the lead. Breck down to the inside. Cheever ahead. Hamilton looks for any racing room that he can find. Breck continues to challenge. Breck comes lower. Breck comes to the inside and around. And the A.J. Foyt-owned car picks up the lead. Davey Hamilton back to second. Now Billy Boat begins to work on Davey Hamilton as well.
I think Hamilton definitely might be having a problem with that front end. There's no question.
Brad, put me up in the high stuff. I'm like, I gotta get the cars, please.
You're listening to the communications between Davey Hamilton and his pit.
My tires are so dirty. Use your bars. Use your bars.
All right, what are they telling him?
They're talking about going soft on the bar, and I got to tell you, that's probably with the front end. Right now, I think he's losing grip in the front end. I'll tell you, getting in traffic like he just did when he got passed, he lost the front end even more. I mean, just getting that grip in the front seems to be his problem right now.
The car, Mike, the car that you have to be concerned about, though, is Kenny Breck. I just checked with Tommy Lamance, who calls the shots on Breck, said, can you go the distance? He said, no, we're going to have to stop again. What about his teammate, Billy Boat, in second? Well, they say that they're going to be able to go without another stop. John?
Well, the situation for the other guys in the top 5, first of all, talks to Larry Curry. Larry Curry, of course, would look after Robbie Buell and Tony Stewart. He does not seem very confident that they can go all the way on fuel. But the guy that I think can go the distance on fuel is Buddy Lazier, car number 91. I think because he can get all the way to the first caution period, he can make it to the end. I'm not so sure about Menard.
Well, Lazier stopped on the 126th lap, but referring back to what Jack was suggesting, Kenny Breck stopped on lap 119. They say that he may not be able to make it, but Billy Boat, his teammate, also stopped on 119, and those guys are saying he can.
It's amazing. That's really hard to figure out. I mean, it's a mixed bag right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how these last laps play out.
Well, what it does is tell you how close the computation may in fact be.
There's no question about that.
Of course, they have on these cars the Pi Research dashboard, which gives both the team and the driver a great deal of information, including fuel flow.
So these guys on board, they can pretty much see everything they've got, but it's definitely up to the pit crew to let them know what and when and where.
So Hamilton continues to ride in 3rd place ahead of Robbie Buell. Tony Stewart now sits in 5th, hoping that the cars ahead of him will all be making a pit stop before the end of the run with 171 laps complete. We'll return with more of the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys after this message and a word from our ABC station. Page with Mike Groff. We are back at the Colorado 200 presented by Pep Boys, and without any yellows, we will carry this to the end of the race. 20 laps to go, 180 complete. The leader, you got a glimpse of him there, is Kenny Breck in the number 14 car, the orange, gold, and yellow car. And behind him is his teammate, Billy Boat, in the number 11 Conseco car. Now, here's the real issue. This is a battle for the lead and also a tactical race in terms of fuel economy. It seems like a lot of these cars will either run out just before the checkered flag or just after it. Now, the team has already suggested that the 14 car, the leader, Kenny Breck, will not be able to make it to the end and that they will refuel him. Well, his teammates, same car, stopped at the same time. Billy Boat, they say, no problem, we will go to the end. In 3rd place now is Robbie Buell, a team car to Tony Stewart, who sits behind him in 4th place. There is the green Conseco car. That is Billy Boat. And he is beginning to reel in his teammate, Kenny Breck.
I got to tell you, Breck's team have been telling him to lean the car down, and that's obviously to conserve fuel. There could be a good chance that both started out lean, and that's what's going to make the difference, because these guys are saying that he's going to make it to the end. It's going to be close, but it'll be interesting.
Mike, remember at the start of the race we alluded to whether it would be 2 stops or 3 stops. A.J. Foyt's team with Billy Boat was one of the teams, Greg Baranowski, his crew chief, that elected to go on that strategy right from the drop of the green flag. However, his power team teammate, Kenny Breck, was not of the same opinion. I find that kind of interesting that you, within one team, would have two separate approaches to a 200-mile race.
You know, at the start of the show, we talked about our stories, one of them being handling and how the car has to sit on this track to be fast. We've seen that play out. Here comes Buell. Buell coming for second place. Whoa, gets way high. Can he keep it away from the wall? Oh, nice piece of saving.
Both got the big rear end wiggle there, and I think that upset Buell's balance for sure.
Now you see Buell just ahead from Tony Stewart, and of course, just ahead of him is Billy Boat. So Stewart sits in fourth, and he has first, second, and third lined up, ending now on the fuel strategy. Talk about rising stars. Here's Kenny Breck. One win to his credit, looking for it. Billy Boat, he's sitting there looking for the opportunity to come into the lead and take the win. So the old master is seen for the moment to have the front of the field with Davey Hamilton, the only one in the top 5 who has not yet won. Tony Stewart sitting right there and closing in. Now, we do expect a stop. You see that Stewart got around Boat, and we do expect a stop from Hamilton anytime now. So as we come to the closing laps, we're very close to the final 10 laps of this run of 200 miles. And the former leader, Davey Hamilton, comes out of 5th place and into the pits. Buell chasing Breck now.
Well, remember, the problem has continually been the handling on the cars. We look at Davey Hamilton, it just wouldn't turn. So Hamilton has to come in, and he'll be able to take on some fuel that could benefit him later on.
And just that quick, Buell got past for the lead at Sam Schmidt's car up high that he's coming under. He comes around and takes the lead away from Kenny Breck. But again, I asked the question, is he being sent out by the Menard team to try and draw other cars into battling with him and therefore use up fuel?
That's definitely a good strategy, Paul, but I got to tell you something. I think Buell's in his own world right now, and he's just having at it as hard as he can. He wants to win this race.
Guys, you got to remember,
we're going to look at that pass for the lead again, just so you can see it. There is Buell as he comes fast and takes over the lead. Jackaroo?
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to remember that Robbie Buell is coming off of a several-week layoff. He didn't run in a couple of events when Menard decided to only run one car. For Robbie Buell right now, this is a chance to prove that he should be considered one of the top drivers in the IRL. Whether that means running full-time next year for Team Menard or maybe going somewhere else. There's no team orders here right now, guys.
When he snatched the lead away from Kenny Breck, he became the 6th different leader of the race, Robbie Buell. 167 miles an hour last lap around with just 8 laps to go now.
Well, I got to tell you, Buell's lap speeds right now are just flying. I mean, he's in a class by himself. 168 mile an hour right now at this stage, the latter stage in the race. He's flying.
John Beacon.
Well, let's talk about Robbie Buell and the fuel situation. I just spoke with John Menard, and he said they were probably going to take a risk and try and make it to the end. I asked, what about Tony Stewart? They said, well, right now, Robbie Buell is in better fuel shape than Tony Stewart. Tony has to conserve. We may roll the dice with Robbie Buell and try and get to the end.
Isn't that interesting? Because Buell played a very conservative early and mid-race. Now we're to the end game, and he apparently has more fuel on board while Stewart was up there battling for the lead. And that kind of shows you the difference in personalities between those two drivers. One, very aggressive, go get him, get the win at any cost. That's Stewart. And then Robbie Buell, who's very, very cautious. And the car is right. He'll keep it under him and just keep that lead in sight. Kind of reminds you of Rick Mears.
No question about it. He drove a real heady race today. He's driving a heady race. Right now he's on fire. He's running, getting everything out of the car that he can. And he's doing an awesome race out there.
5 to go now. Buell the leader. You got a glimpse of Kenny Breck a moment ago. We'll look for him again. He runs 5 seconds behind the leader. Tony Stewart is 7 seconds behind the leader. And there's some indication now that they are going to pit Tony Stewart. And look at this. Buell comes into the pits. Whoa, what a surprise this is.
Half turn on the front, half turn on the front. Nice and easy, Robbie. Half turn. Yellow.
So Buell, the leader of the race, comes into the pits, asks for a turn on the front half turn to try and get the handling, try and button the front end down a bit, I suppose, but that gives Kenny Breck the lead of the race in the closing laps here now. 196 complete. And look here. Look here, Tony Stewart is on the pit road as well. Both Menard cars come into the pits. Kenny Breck still the leader.
And of course, all he's going to do is get a quick splash of fuel. Both the Menard cars decided they could not make it. They tried, but the car sputtered. Now Tony Stewart's back underway.
And of course, the question will be, can Kenny Breck make it? He last stopped along with Billy Boat on the 119th lap.
And Paul, maybe we can't answer that, but I'll tell you what the transmission was just now. Go to 5th gear. Go to 5th gear. Please.
Oh, look at this. Billy Boat currently slowing on the backstretch. That answers that question, and so now you got to ask what's going to happen with the leader of the race, Kenny Breck. White flag comes out.
Car 14, turn 5.
Oh, they've stretched this all the way. We better make sure we know who second, third, and fourth is. Right now, he crossed the line with 10 seconds ahead of everybody else. Kenny Breck, Howard team car. And he turns for the line. Dual checkered flags from Brian Howard. Here's second place.
Bobby finished second.
That's Larry Curry talking to Tony Stewart.
All pit deck, stay with your car that you're assigned to.
And of course, A.J. Foyt absolutely ecstatic, but yet he's sitting here in a green timing stand, and right over our shoulder, you can see what happens with the team. You can see that Billy Boat is climbing out of his car, but yet the other team members for the power team for Kenny Breck are jumping all over the place, running down to victory lane. Right now, A.J. is happy, but it's sorry sight, certainly for Boat. A.J., that was amazing. One car out of fuel.
Sixth gear and turn in. I told him when I just coast. I knew it was close with both cars, but I was going to gamble.
Well, at least one of the gambles paid off. Congratulations.
Yeah, he split them, and it paid off for one of them. Interesting, though, two cars stop on the same lap. One makes it, one doesn't. So the driver does, in fact, really make the difference. So A.J. Foyt, who's had some surgery on his knee, that's why he's using the crutches, climbed somewhat painfully over the wall, though I imagine he'll scoot right down as Kenny Breck comes into the winner's circle. Now, with this winner's circle interview from Pep Boys, here's Jack Arute.
Well, Kenny Breck has a smile that actually exceeds the full-face helmet here. A lot of paraphernalia to get out. That's Tommy LeManche, the team manager for the power team. And don't forget, this is the second win for Kenny Breck, having scored a victory under the lights at Charlotte Motor Speedway. They're going to try and get this black thing here is his water cooler that he carries on board. A lot of paraphernalia here. Kenny Breck is the type of driver that told me before the start of the weekend's activities he has learned so much from A.J. Foyt, because A.J. is a former driver, and he said some people forget that fact. Kenny, if we can get the helmet off real quick, we want to get a chat with you about what has to be one of the best Colorado fuel consumption situations we have ever seen. Kenny? He did say, he's admitting that he ran out on turn 3. Turn 4, you were out of fuel with the clutch fully depressed.
Yeah, I got to thank AJ and the power team and everyone. Matthew McCartan, thank you very much. And KT Kenyon's good year. It's good to have this victory. It feels really good.
When they started the race, as we look at A.J. Foyt coming towards victory circle, he can't run over here because he's had his knee worked on. But when you started the race, were you in a fuel consumption situation, or did A.J. and the team give you a green light all the way?
We started the race quite conservative. I think I told you after qualifying that I care more about this than being first in qualifying, and we really had it hooked up, and I was in 6th gear for most of the time. I was actually conserving fuel when Buell overtook me, but I knew that I didn't think they could go the distance. But
what kind of discipline does it take for a driver to let another guy go by him in that situation?
You just have one eye in the mirror, see where the others are, how fast they're going, controlling the speed, and you do what you can. Again, I got to thank AJ and the whole crew and power team. Great, unbelievable.
2 wins. How many more can you get before the end of the season?
3.
Hey, Paul, he's pretty definite about that.
He knows what's left, doesn't he? As a matter of fact, he moves quite a bit in the points. From 5th to 3rd, he jumps forward. And Robbie Buell and the gang, Tony Stewart, they're all down there talking over the race that they have just completed. They decide in the Menard camp to bring their cars in at the end of the run, and that turns the race over to Kenny Breck. And in doing that, as we look at the Coors Light race summary, at the conclusion of the race, Kenny Breck takes the win at a record 133.515 miles an hour with 6 different leaders. We'll be back. Kenny Breck is the winner. Robbie Buell comes home in second place. He's with Jan Vigas.
And Robbie, it was a great run for you, but I know you wish you had just a little more fuel. Do you think you could make it?
Yeah, I mean, really all we needed was another gallon. But that's part of the game. I mean, we knew that the prior yellow, we were kind of staying out as late as we could because we knew what the fuel window was, but we just needed a little bit more. But now that feels good after missing the last 2 races and Johns Mansell just being their home. That was a good run for us. We needed it.
Tell us about a big moment you had out there, I believe, with Billy Boat. You guys got high, he had a wiggle, and I guess it was a pretty scary moment.
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, the last 25 laps or 20 laps, that was great racing. I really enjoyed it, but I went by Billy on the high side of 1 and 2. I had a run on him, and he was doing everything he could to protect himself. He got a little bit loose, therefore he moved up the track, and I had to move up the track, and then when you get up in that gray stuff, you just, you know, you're along for the ride. You're just kind of skating, so I just backpedaled it and kept it off there.
Will you be back, do you know, in this car for the rest of the year?
I don't know. I mean, hopefully this helps. You know, that's Jean Menard's decision. You know, we're taking it 1 race at a time. We're back here, but I think we're planning on doing the rest of the races, I hope.
Okay, congratulations.
Thanks. Paul?
And so Robbie Buell unofficially in second. Here are, in fact, the unofficial results. Breck led twice for 29 laps. He took the lead for the final time with just 5 to go. 10 lead changes among 6 drivers. Here's an interesting number. Breck ran the final 81 miles on his fuel supply, but it ran out on the 82nd. So Kenny Breck takes the win as you look for your favorite there. Only 3 cars out of the run, Miller, Calkins, and Bosell. So a good day, a fast day, and a safe day here in Colorado.